Hello, everybody, and welcome to Penguins to Go, your daily dose of Pittsburgh Penguins news and analysis. You can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins or anywhere you get your podcasts from. The Pittsburgh Penguins did fall in overtime, aka a shootout, last night to the Washington Capitals in our nation's capital by a score of 3-2. A lot of fight shown from the Pittsburgh Penguins in that game. Fell behind multiple times, only to come back and score tying goals, the first one being Denton Heinen's. Second time in a row that he scored a goal. And then Brian Rust late in the game. Good to see him get on the board, especially in the way that he did. But there was one thing during that game that kind of bothered me. And it's something that has bothered me for a couple of years now. And you start to kind of rationalize it. And then eventually you just look at it and you say, you know what? They could be doing better. And that's playing with physicality. The Penguins' lack of physicality is a problem for me. I thought it was very evident last night against the Washington Capitals, one of the most physical teams that you'll see in the National Hockey League. They take after their captain. Alex Ovechkin has always been a physical player. 18 years in the league now, he's been that way every single year, and he's not changing. And neither is the identity of that team. That's not what I'm asking the Pittsburgh Penguins to do. Don't change your identity. Don't become the Washington Capitals. Because that's just not who they are. But I do want them to play a little bit more physically. The league is moving away from this in general. It is. They're making the game faster, more entertaining, more open spaces, more skilled players, less bigger bodies, less guys that go out there to hit and remove player from puck. But that does not mean that there's not physical players remaining in the National Hockey League. The Penguins have a couple on their roster. Jason Zucker, chief among them. I think Zucker's probably the most physical player on the Pittsburgh Penguins, which is not necessarily what you want from a top six player that has an injury history past. But still, he's been playing physically all season long. He's having his best year as a Pittsburgh Penguin, and that's just the way that he likes to play the game. 150 miles an hour, 110%, going through bodies. That's the way Jason Zucker plays. That might be why he's my favorite player on this team. Take away, obviously, Crosby, Malkin, and Letang, because I feel like it's an unfair advantage because of nostalgia and history and being better than everybody. Jason Zucker is one of my favorite players on this team. That might be why. Josh Archibald. Ever wonder why he's endeared himself to the fan base so much? He plays physical. He plays tough. He hits. He separates bodies from pucks. Jeff Petrie does it from time to time. Chris Letang does it from time to time. But beyond that, there's nobody that really does it consistently. Yeah, Drew O'Connor, he'll be physical a couple games in a row. He can lay a big hit here and there. But again, not consistently. Now, it's not their fault. It's the way the team is constructed. It's the way the team has been instructed to play by Mike Sullivan, because he likes to play possession hockey. He likes to play, hey, make us fast, keep us going in the game, make sure the game continues to get higher paced all the way around. And that worked early on. Because early on, this team was younger, this team had better legs, and this team could outskate other teams in the National Hockey League because the league hadn't gotten to the point where it is now, where every team can win in a foot race. But the Pittsburgh Penguins just aren't that team right now. It's not the way they look to play. They don't look to play physical, but they also can't really rely on outskating everybody anymore. So I feel like they need to bring that into their game a little bit more going forward. It's not something that I'm saying, hey, if they don't do this, they're not going to be able to succeed at all. Because we've seen this season that they can succeed playing the style that they play. But once playoff hockey comes around, the physicality automatically goes up. You saw it last year in the playoffs against the Rangers. Physicality went up. Pittsburgh Penguins ended up on the losing battle of a lot of those hits. You saw it against the Islanders. Both times the Penguins matched up against them. How did they get the Penguins off their game? They hit them. They played physical. They separated them from the puck physically. You see it all around the league. And if you look at it this year, the Penguins are in a tough Eastern Conference. A lot of good teams, but the top teams in the conference, Boston, Tampa Bay, the New York Rangers, who were just ahead of the Pittsburgh Penguins, and the Washington Capitals, who they saw last night. They're all teams that like to play physically. That's part of their game, more so than it's part of the Pittsburgh Penguins game. The Penguins said all offseason, we want to get harder to play against. That's not what I'm talking about. Harder to play against is better on pucks, quicker to transition, quicker to the forecheck. They're just not playing physically enough, and that's not part of their game. They need to add that element somewhere. I'm not saying go out and get Ryan Reeves, because some people will think that that's what I'm talking about. No. These players, they're not soft. The players that the Penguins have are fully capable of playing this style of game. It's just the style of game that the Penguins don't want to play. Jason Zucker does it anyway. Josh Archibald does it anyway. Why? Because that's how they get to their specific game. Jake Gensel, not physical. The defense, Pettersson, not physical. P.O. Joseph, not physical. Chad Ruhwedel, not physical. Jan Ruda hasn't even been that physical when he's out there on the ice this year. Dumoulin tries, but they just don't tell their players to step up in those moments and make the physical play. They like stick checks, which, hey, for its part, has become a very good thing for the Pittsburgh Penguins at times. It's won them Stanley Cups in this era. But I would just really like to see some more physicality all the way around from this team. When the defense steps up on players, when you have numbers back, instead of stick checking them, step up and hit somebody. Ian Cole was really good at this when he was with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Knowing you have numbers back, you have more players on your side, and you have somebody just coming up trying to get through the entire defense. Instead of sitting back, instead of going out with a stick check, just go flatten the guy. And it doesn't even have to be a massive hit. Go out there and just separate the puck from the body. It might just be because that's the way I was taught when I was coming up, but I just don't see it enough from the Pittsburgh Penguins. I see a lot of stick checks. I see a lot of hesitation when body checks are coming. I don't see them playing through the player they're going after. I see them going up, stopping really hard, and trying to shuffle the puck away with their stick. Not a lot of contact. It's not the first thing that jumps into their minds. And it's on the other end of the ice, too. I feel like the forwards need to play more physically on the boards in the offensive zone when they're in on the forecheck. A lot of the time when the puck comes up the wall and there's a defensive player on the other team that's getting ready to either chip the puck or let it go through, the Penguins, a lot of the times, they go up against the boards and try to block the puck. Well, if that player touches it, just run them over. Play a little bit more physically. Make the other team a little bit more tentative. Because at the end of the day, that's going to give you an advantage. That's going to change the game. Again, this might just be evident to me because the Penguins played the Washington Capitals last night, and that's how every matchup against the Capitals has gone since 2005. That team plays over physically throughout the game, but it always just makes it seem like the Pittsburgh Penguins are on their back foot. Again, it's over-exaggerated against a team like the Capitals because that is their bread and butter, but maybe there's something the Penguins can take from them. Maybe that's something the Penguins can integrate into their game a little bit more in the second half of the season, and maybe that's something that leads to this team turning it around and getting back up into the top 3 in the Metropolitan Division. Thank you for tuning into this episode of Penguins to Go. You can find us on YouTube at Inside the Penguins or anywhere you get your podcasts from. That's going to do it for this week. Make sure you check out the feed for multiple episodes of Penguins to Go and Tip of the Ice-Burgh podcast, and we'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend, Penguins fans.